Take the roll.
Trustee Reader. Present. Gilbert.
Present.
Baptist. Absent. Baines.
Present.
Barandis.
Barandis here.
Perez.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
Thank you.
Gilbert, will you lead us in the pledge?
You want to read the agenda first?
Okay, I can approve. Can I get a
Actually,
motion?
I'm just saying that.
Man, you are science today.
you're
Okay.
gonna get it.
Can I get a motion? Second.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You guys have it. It's approved.
Man has asked me to do lead the pledge, and I just, I reflect on this is that, you know, when you say one nation, there is no common, one nation under God. That's the John Wayne saying, and that's the way it's written. So if I'm out of step a little bit, I recognize there's no common. Join.
Let's judge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. How do you? You did good. Scouts, sit down.
Thank you, Professor
Some
Gilbert.
of us are old enough to remember the version that did not say under God. A few of us.
But you're older than me, huh?
You and me. That's the 40s now. That's enough.
Okay, any conflict of interest? Nope. Okay. Any presentations?
No.
Okay. And public comment?
None received prior to the meeting.
Okay. General manager's report.
Good morning, everyone. A couple things not included in the general manager's report, and if there are questions on what's provided in the GM report, we'll be happy to answer those questions. But two items. First of all, the RD1000 trustee election for 2024. By the nomination period, the close of the nomination period, the district had 3 valid nominations filed for 4 seats. And so therefore, based on water code and election code, we do not have to perform an election this fall. And so we haven't produced any candidate statements, no ballots. None of that. The 3 valid nominees are the incumbents, Tom Smith, Nick, and Tom Gilbert. And so those 3 will have to provide a letter to the County Board of Supervisors and get them to agendize an item to make that appointment per the water code and election code. Tom Barandis did not file a nomination petition, and therefore will have a vacancy after his term expires on December 1st. That vacancy per the election code and water code shall be appointed by the County Board of Supervisors. Now, this board does have the option to make known to the County Board of Supervisors during that process on a potential candidate that you would like to see appointed for that vacancy when it occurs. So the time frame for that is rather quick. We'll need to take action if you would like to interview any of the potential candidates for the vacancy. We'll post a notification on our website and in the paper, and we have to do that for the incumbents in the appointment. We have to provide that notification anyway, and then about the upcoming vacancy, and that you would like to, if so desired, to interview those candidates during an open session at our November board meeting, and then ask the County Board of Supervisors based on that recommendation or selection process from this board. We would submit that to the County Board of Supervisors for consideration. And so they do not have to take your recommendation. If there's someone else that petitions them, they could appoint someone else. And so even if we go through the interview process and you select, say there's 2 or 3, and you prefer one, the county could, on petition by the other interested parties, appoint someone else. So it's their discretion, but typically the County Board of Supervisors recognizes different districts or different boards within their jurisdiction that you know best what the needs are of the district and the board. And so typically they follow along with recommendations. So we've done this in the past when we've had resignations and appointment necessary. And so it's nothing new, it's just the timing's different. The difference with this one is, the nice thing is that they appointed by the County Board of Supervisors, they'll serve for the full term and not just until the next election, whereas other appointments require to be run in the next upcoming election, or if that term is in the third year already, they serve the remainder of the term. So a little bit different, but just wanted to update you on that. If there's questions, Scott, did I get that honestly right? Okay, great. So if there's questions, Scott, about that right now, Scott, I'd be happy to answer.
So if I understand it correctly, if this board chose to be involved in the selection process, our choice would be just a recommendation to the county board supervisors. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess my understanding was different, was it defaults to them if we don't take action. I didn't realize it was just a recommendation.
That's the difference between a resignation and this board appointing. When in the election code, if there's not enough to, to run for an election, the County Board of Supervisors has that discretion. So we can't do it as our body. It doesn't require
Timeline, yeah, what we would have to do by when.
So we need to provide notice for the nominees, the incumbents, to the county, and ask them to place on their next agenda. And it usually takes a couple weeks for them to get something up, so it would be by, probably for them in November. But we'll provide notice and make that request. So I'm not too concerned about that timeline. But if we would like to make an appointment, and so that's one request. The second request is for the vacancy. Ideally, we would submit that at the same time, so it goes on to their calendar and agendize the same. And so we could request that it be placed on their second meeting in November after this board. So we'll put that request in as soon as possible, and then we would follow up if this board wanted to interview potential trustees in November at a November board meeting. We would then submit a letter to the county that you've made a recommendation for them to consider on their agenda item. So the timeline, Tom, would be, we would probably next week provide notice if this board wants to go through that process to interview interested candidates. We would put notice out for next week, and then at our November board meeting, those individuals would come and be interviewed by the board. And you would make a decision, because it's not agendized today. You guys would make a decision. So we'd give a couple of weeks for people, the word to get out there, and for them to put in their paperwork.
So what, we have an early meeting November 9th.
Yeah, I think it's the 8th or
Oh, it's the 8th.
Yeah.
First is on Friday, yeah,
Mhm.
second Friday's time. Oh, right. So at that meeting, if we've noticed that we've got people that are interested, you're saying we would then, in an open meeting,
Mhm.
like we did before, is have each of the prospective interest parties do a presentation. And then at that meeting, we would make a motion to select one of those to be recommended for that seat.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's up to the County Board of Supervisors to heed your advice or go a different direction, as long as the person they appoint is qualified.
At least squeeze between now and that 8th, trying to get a notice out, get interested parties and get them lined up. So,
Yeah, and that's the situation we're in. Regardless, even with an election, it's a very tight window. So they're used to kind of these requests.
So what would you need from a candidate in the next week or two?
Well, so maybe as part of that question, and going back to the last one, technically, there's no notice requirement that you put out word that you're going to have a spot. But Kevin and I have been using that terminology because it's a fair process, and the district wants to appear fair. Realistically, you could not do notice at all, and next month, one of you could come forward and say, I want Joe Blow to be on the board, and you guys could recommend Joe Blow. The problem is, for the outside world, it doesn't always look very fair. So the notice issue is, one of trying to open it up for the candidate who maybe you haven't heard of and have that person come in. And so even if there's only a week or two's notice, so it's a week or two's notice, you know, if you each individually have people that you talk to through your networks, RD1000 has a really good social media presence now, right? It can put something out on social media and then there's an opportunity for people.
That would be the best vehicle because people on our social media, obviously, they start aware of RD1000 versus the general blast. That makes sense.
And again, as Scott mentioned, it is the option of this board. You don't have to go through that process to interview. If there's consensus amongst the board on there's one person in mind, and they're qualified and you'd like them to serve, then go solicit their interest and have them make themselves known to the county board of supervisors as well, you know, and you could formally write a letter without.
Right? If you can convince Tom to change his mind, you can stand behind Tom.
That's true.
But you also cannot do anything. Most districts want to kind of help control their destiny, but you can just let the supervisors deal with this problem.
Well, is that your final answer, Tom?
Yeah. Are you sure?
I'm, you know, I thought it was a good time to step away because I thought there were gonna be plenty of other people wanting the position, so. If that, it's up to the board, if the board wants to nominate me, I have no problem.
So you could be, you would be considered in this process we're talking about. Just based on your knowledge of you as the potential.
I don't have a problem. Serving.
Better to
Yeah,
file your
so,
candidates.
I mean, that would be the easiest process is, you know,
Better just file your candidates.
so you could make that decision now or.
You can't make that decision
Well, I mean,
now.
as far as Tom can make the decision if he's interested and then let you all know.
I mean, if you're tired of this, just say so.
No,
That's been Tom.
that's not, you know, I thought about this, my father passed away while he was serving on this board, and I'm not sure I want to make it, okay? So I thought, hey, you know.
Hopefully it wasn't the stress of the
We've had
district.
the
that
last
made it
couple
happen.
of elections, we've had plenty
Paul
of
Devereux.
candidates, so I really didn't think I was gonna be putting the board in this situation, so, but I'm fine. I can, if you think that's what you want is me to stay on, I have no problem with that.
So from a Browning perspective, you can talk all you want now. You can get consensus on anything you want. You can give staff direction on what to do for the next meeting and put on the agenda, but you can't make an actual decision today.
So I just need to know what the board would like staff to do, as Scott mentioned. Do we put out notice and advertise, and do you want to interview potential candidates at the next meeting or agendize the appointment?
Yeah, transfer the first.
And you want social media notice or more? Do you want something beyond social media?
This is
Social
interesting.
media, anybody's, they gotta at least be aware of this in order to be interested, so beyond our social media.
This is a very interesting twist. And
You didn't write the story.
Ed, do you want to
Well,
do this?
well. No, I was just gonna think, I'm going in front of you, yeah, about the twist.
And I don't believe there's anybody out there more qualified, but my own opinion would be, we should open it up to social media, whatever, in case there's somebody out there for just the purpose of being open. But my own opinion would be there's most likely nobody more qualified to represent the community that you represent on this forward. So as I say that, I'm saying I want you to compete with the others, but I don't think they're gonna win. But it would show it would show the openness of the board. Um, So that's in my thinking about what you said 5 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago. I, I think I would want you to compete, beat those other people. Because I think, yeah, your knowledge of the community is unsurpassed by anybody, but that's,
First I was gonna thank um, the council for, um, alerting us about the options, because I would, that's what prompted me to ask Tom about whether it was his final answer, and thank God I asked. And now we know the reason why he didn't file. So, so a couple of thoughts. Number one, I agree with the rest of the board. I'd be one of the first to say, um, that, the open nomination and notice process would be ideal, given that we received a transparency award. You know? However, now that we're fully aware of the rationale for Tom not filing, and given that he's expressed interest in serving again, and to echo what Tom said, I, I mean, you've got institutional memory here that would benefit the board. So again, I would be the first to say, and that's why I want to say this for the record, is so that if any, because my suggestion would be that we, because had Tom filed, he'd be in a position. Um, so I would actually recommend that we make the appointment, but I wanted to put this on the record. So if anybody asks why we did this without telling anybody else, that's the reason. Notwithstanding, if that wasn't the case, then I'll be the first to say, let's do a notice, solicit nominations. And the other thing too is we did solicit nominations, right? And only 3 people filed for 4 spots. So I think we've covered that part. If anybody complains, why did you? They had the opportunity. But that's my 5 cents.
So just for clarification, trustee Perez, your recommendation would be just to agendize for the next meeting to have Tom Barandis be the board's nominee to petition the county board of supervisors to appoint without doing more notification, because we've already noticed for the election and for the reasons in their transparency. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most ideal way to do it. So do you need a motion for them?
No, we
No.
can't take a motion,
Okay.
but I would like
That's right, it's
to,
not on the agenda.
I would like to
Thank you for
canvass the rest of the trustees, because there's 2 different directions to staff now. So if with that second recommendation, how are we feeling?
I still think we should do a notice.
Social media.
Social media. We don't necessarily need to agendize what trustee Perez suggested. If that's the direction we go, we can take action next board meeting regardless to go.
So I'll do, I think that might satisfy kind of both things. We'll do a social media post about the board's action, potential action. And if anyone is interested, that they are welcome to come address the board at that meeting on that agenda item. But I'll prepare the staff report. And so what you would do is hear from any other interested parties. I would let you know if there are interested parties during presentation of that staff report. But we already know we have one interested party. If there are others, then they can make public comment, and probably don't have, you could ask questions of that individual, but probably not the formal interview process that we've done for other appointments,
Would we be asking them to submit a formal statement of their qualifications or something, or just show up?
Yeah,
Show up. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to leave it, at least let's formal spot.
we will craft the social post in such a way to make it known that they're welcome to, if interested, come and address the board, seeking a recommendation to the county board of supervisors. Otherwise, I'll generate the staff report to take action for trustee Barandis.
Yeah, it might be that the staff report, as you're saying, Kevin, says staff recommends that the board recommend someone to the Board of Supervisors.
Yep.
Staff has become aware that trustee Mirandis is willing to be recommended. In the absence of someone else that the board thinks is more qualified, staff would recommend trustee Mirandis be nominated. That way, there's a basis and there's an exception for the amazing 23-year-old young person who's incredible and everyone loves, and somehow Tom steps back and goes, "That's who I wanted to have run this time," right?
Don't make it
That would be another list.
I know.
Which Tom are we talking about?
I think that it would be helpful to the board to know that we at least had noticed the vacancy. I think for them,
The supervisor.
yeah, the board of supervisors.
We should know that.
And I think that's okay. All right, so good. Any other questions on that? I think I have clear enough direction to bring something forward in November. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Second item, not included in the, and there might be a third, but the second item, we did have a very productive meeting with city staff last week about our request for digital billboards. And so we're working with staff and giving them some information and they'll review. But they said that in their opinion, timing was fortuitous. And it was actually a very positive meeting. I expected a little bit more pushback based on some of the constraints that we talked about with Scott Sheldon here from Terra Realty about zoning requirements and the overlay of an existing sign district because of the DOCO and the Golden One. But staff, I was surprised. It wasn't just a no. They were provided some information and they actually saw some mutual benefit in that. The process, as explained by staff, we wanted to know process first, and that's why we met with them before reaching out to any of the elected. The process has to come from a request from a council member. That there's no formal application process for, it's kind of a unique circumstance. They don't have policy or procedure on this type of request. And so the request would need to come from one of our council members. And so when staff's comfortable with the information we provided, we don't want to blindside staff with, a request from a council member. Staff appreciated that at the city, and they want to be prepared when they get this request. So we want to make sure that staff has all information to be able to answer questions from a council member and place on the agenda. So we provided that information to city staff, and we have a pretty quick turnaround. City staff is in the process of some other major market players potentially in the rail yard. And so that's why the timing might be very convenient, especially if there's some profit sharing from or revenue sharing, which is common, as Scott Sheldon told the board. And so we have good locations. And so once staff is comfortable, probably in a couple of weeks, we will reach out to our two council members and ask them to move something forward and make the request to take action on. So I thought it was a really productive meeting with city staff, and we're making progress there. So the last item is on the pumping plant 8, the warehouse. We made our formal offer. The property owner reviewed our offer and is going to get their own appraisal, which is good news, right? I mean, it's a positive step. They didn't just reject it and say, no, you're way off base. So sounds like we have an interested, willing participant in those negotiations. And so we're just waiting back. They have about 30 days to get their appraisal and then probably counter with an offer if the appraisals vary in any significant margin. So anyway, those are the updates that I have for you this morning. I'll be happy to answer any further questions.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
on to the operation manager's report.
Good morning. I wanted to know, I wasn't included in the
management report, we did perform the annual soil hedge freeze plan.
Mhm.
Past week. We hauled about 80,000 pounds of garbage, 1%, and conjunction with American River, functional districts and the diversity water. Volunteers. Unfortunately, we weren't not able to move the campus, so just, I think next year we're gonna come here and essentially remove the campus to get, but 80,000 pounds of garbage on our stuff. So, yeah.
Very interesting to watch them tear out giant shopping carts and poo flags and all that. Are we doing anything for Rich's retirement?
Not right now. So some of us have been talking about it, but we don't have anything on the books yet. But if we do, I'll let the board know.
District council.
Not much this month. It's been a pretty quiet month. The only item that I think we've paid attention to other than the election issue is we did have a property owner that several months ago filed an appeal on their stormwater fee. And we worked with NBS, Kevin, NBS, correct? Yeah, NBS, who's processing the fee, and worked with them to confirm that it was an improper appeal and rejected it. And then the landowner wrote a follow-up arguing with the rejection, and that led to some dialogue between the landowner's attorney and us, continuing to explain the basis. Nothing is rising to the board at this point, but I did want to let you know that we've been working on that.
To the consent calendar, can I get a motion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
I abstain. So I wasn't here.
Sure. First you're teaching us about the pledge, and now you're, okay.
Are you abstaining?
Pardon?
Are you abstaining?
I am.
There's something happening, right? There's something happening. I don't know. I have to talk to his wife. Okay, board activities. You guys have finance committee today, right?
We do. We have a finance committee meeting at 9:30 to discuss the district's cost allocation plan. We're having Matrix come in to give a presentation about the methodology and data used to develop the cost allocation plan. If you recall, every year the board adopts a new rate in June, effective July 1, and it has to do with our overhead and administration costs that then we apply on work done for others, and as well as an OMB compliant rate to submit for any grant fundings or state funds for our admin costs in administering grants. And so we'll be making, and I expect a few of the developers that we're in agreement with for development processing agreements. I anticipate a few of show up this morning to hear the presentation. In fact, we've invited them to come as they've had some questions since the last adoption in June and the new rates applied. So we'll be discussing that with the finance committee and potentially a recommendation back to the board regarding the cost allocation plan or not. If the finance committee feels the cost allocation plan is completely appropriate, there may not be a recommendation, but I'll provide those meeting minutes to the board at the next board meeting.
Okay. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Okay. All those opposed? It was November 8th, 9:30.